we have an entire week off. Between UFC Vegas 113 and UFC Houston, we have no fights whatsoever. So instead of sitting there on your thumb, I'm going to sit here and break down your questions. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and welcome to another episode of Community Questions. This is the show where I put a post on the YouTube channel. I said, hey, got any questions for your boy? And you people ask questions. Sometimes it's about love. Sometimes it's about fights. Lots of times it's about my body and how I keep this physique. Let's go ahead and dive into these questions. We've got that boy, JK104, and he says, do you think if Max Holloway wins versus Charles Oliveira, the UFC will push for Ilia versus Holloway rematch? Or do you think that they will jump Max and go to, that says Artem, he means Armin. Armin deserves a title shot, but the UFC might go with the more entertaining guy in Max. This also assumes that Justin loses. P.S. Keep doing the community question videos. Well, I'll address the PS. I actually enjoy doing these videos. Some of these questions are, some of them are insults disguised as questions. Others are very good questions. And I like doing this. I feel like it's a way to connect with everybody because I can't keep up with every comment. But if we focus it and say, leave your comment this week for this video, then I can. The problem is nobody watches this shit. Nobody watches this shit. This just flies under the radar. The people who do watch it love it. And I can see that in the stats. It shows the average watch time is higher and all that crap. But the problem is most of our audience doesn't give a shit. Most of our audience wants to see Jacob and I yuck it up, have a few laughs, break down fights. So I like doing these. For now, I'm just going to do them in off weeks when there are no fights. I think we're about to hit a stretch where there's like 12 weeks of fights in a row. I would like to make this a weekly show. I can't do it on We Want Picks because there's just not enough views to justify it, and I don't want to mess up my algorithm. But we do have two YouTube channels. We have this, We Want Picks, and then we have Picks Nation. That's where we put the Underdog Fantasy, the Prize Picks. That's where we put all that stuff. In theory, this could operate over there. Now, if this were to do thousands of views over there, I would leave it over there and make it weekly. But I don't know. I guess let me know if you guys would watch it somewhere else. The problem is I'm asking the audience who has already watched this video. I need to be asking the people who saw the thumbnail, said, no thanks, fatty, and then moved on. Anyway, the question is, if Max beats Charles, this is the BMF title at 236, will they just do Max versus Ilia? And that assumes Ilia beats Justin Gaethje. And my answer is no. I don't think they will. For a couple of reasons. One, the timeline's a mess, and then you're going to be sitting out one of your bigger stars because Ilia is not currently booked to fight, and I assume they're saving him for the White House, which is not till June. Right now, it's February. Max will fight in March. It's a 3-month gap, which isn't the worst. But then if you want to put those two together, maybe it would be in the fall. So Max wouldn't be fighting for a giant chunk of the year. Anyway, I think the bigger issue is that Ilia has already beaten Max. And they were able to skate by and not include the BMF belt in that. But if it happens twice, if Ilia beats Max twice, then you have to give Ilia the BMF belt. You have to. How could you not? The dude beat him twice. So then you have a champion with 2 belts. He's got the BMF belt and the regular lightweight belt. So now every time Ilia fights, he's defending 2 belts. And it just makes it a mess. The BMF belt should always be its own independent belt, and it should never include a champion. To me, that belt is for, literally what it says, BMS, baddest motherfucker. It should be for those type people. People like Charles, people like Justin, people like Max, Dan Hooker, people that will go out there, get the fuck kicked out of them and keep moving forward. The problem is, once you start including world champions, well, maybe it's not a BMF. What if Armin becomes a champion? I wouldn't call Armin a BMF. Because he did one headbutt at the weigh-in. So no, I don't think they put them together. I think the BMF needs to be its own belt, living independently so that it can headline its own events. 236 is a perfect example. Then we have a question from Pure Sparks. Pure Sparks says, Big Ange, can we get fight time averages and round stats added to premium? As in, fighter A averages only 6 minutes in the octagon, or fighter B finishes the fight in the second round 50% of the time. Yeah, buddy. First of all, these videos, I don't intend for them to be a premium promo. That's why I don't even mention it. You mentioned it, not me. Greatest service in the world, WeWantPicks.com. Second of all, this exists. We have it already. If you go to the website, under Tools, do cheat sheet, and right there, bang, you have multiple tabs. One of the tabs is the data. You have the data that you need. And it includes average fight minutes. It includes average fight minutes inside the UFC, average fight minutes outside of the UFC, which is better because that gives you an indication of their entire career, not just maybe one fight or two. So this already exists, and you can find it on the website. Then we have a question from Black Red 1032. Can you teach us how to use the fight simulation to score better on parlays? Well, he's referring to the fight simulator, the tool on the website, greatest website in the world. I would not use it for parlays. I'll keep it that simple. The fight simulator, what it does is it simulates fights 100,000 times and it gives you the outputs. It is not an AI. We have an AI. The AI gives you fight picks, and we have other tools. The fight simulator is essentially a wildly complicated, fancy calculator that takes all these different data points, runs it through the calculations, and it says, all right, based off this information 100,000 times, here's how we see the fight going. But it's not about how often it's picking a fighter to win, and more about the individual statistics, like how many significant strikes are fighters landing in those simulations? How many takedowns are they getting in those simulations? How many DraftKings fantasy points did they score in those simulations? And then use that information. So to use it for parlays, I wouldn't. I think there's better tools and information to help you build parlays, unless you're building prop parlays. What we have had a wild amount of success with the simulator is Prize Picks and Underdog, because both of those offer strike lines. And then I go to the simulator, I run it, I click on a fighter, and then it shows me how many significant strikes that fighter landed throughout those simulations. And then I go back to Prize Picks or Underdog, and I look at the line, I compare the two. You can do that with your sportsbook. Every sportsbook now is offering significant strike lines for fights. So you could do the exact same thing. Go to your sportsbook, see what the significant strike line is. Those lines usually don't drop till later in the week, sometimes not till Friday. See what the line is that they have laid out, run the simulator, and then compare the two. And then the simulator will tell you the gap between the two. The simulator let's say the line on the book is 60, then the simulator says, 79. You drag the line over from 79 to 60, and the simulator tell you, all right, X% of the time we're over or under. So I would do that. I would use that, and if you want to put a few of those together for a parlay, go for it. But the fight simulator is not, there's better ways to build just straight up moneyline parlays. Then we have Jake Garcia, 1738. Why don't you add the fighter ranking next to the graphics? First of all, I have the best graphics in this game, okay? That's an objective fact. Nobody has better graphics. I do 2 graphics per fighter. 3 if you include the thumbnail, but 2 per fighter. 1 with the high level opening odds, the current odds. Then we have the DraftKings fantasy information on there. The second one has all the stats, right? The height, reach, weight, biometrics, all that bullshit. Now, and both those show their score, their record, last 5, country of origin, all that crap, weight class. The problem is adding something new. Where do I put it? Where would I put it? Those graphics are they're perfect right now. I don't know where I would put the ranking. Second of all, most fighters are not ranked. The vast majority of fighters are not ranked. If there's 600 fighters under contract and we're only ranking the top 10, well, that's 10 per weight class. So we're talking, 10% of the fighters are ranked, which means 90% of the graphics would have an unranked or no number at all. And then you'll say, well, no, but then use Tapology rankings. Well, now I'm not using the official UFC rankings. These are completely different rankings that are meaningless in the scheme of things. So fighter rankings is a hard thing to put on there. And don't say, well, if there is a ranking, then add it. If there's not, then don't. Because then it already takes me a few hours to put this shit together. Now I'm building custom graphics for fights and removing it. No, too much. If you can think of a way to do it that's not labor intensive, it doesn't look stupid on the screen, then of course, but I can't think. Then we have a question from Griffin129. You said you have cornered before. Would you do it again if asked? Also, you coach high school wrestling, right? How did you handle a kid that came out and pulled a Jalton Almeida? And would you let your kids compete in those Muay Thai kid fights in Thailand? All right, Lots of questions here. Yes, I have cornered fighters before at every level. Regional MMA. I've cornered in the UFC 5 times. I've cornered a bunch of fighters. And this is just straight up MMA fights. I've done a bunch of cornering. I would do it again. I would have to know the fighter, though. I mean, I'm happy to go into cornering blind. To me, cornering is not coaching. A lot of people and new corners and tryhards make the mistake of cornering as if they're coaching. Like, hey, and like walking through a technique. That's not what this is. You're walking him through the fight. You're A, encouraging him. B, giving him information that he may not already know or have. Like how much time might be left. Or if you're noticing something that he's not noticing. The cornering to me is not a time to coach. And if you watch some of the best corners in the game, you'll never see Greg Jackson walking through a new technique. Greg Jackson gets him. He's like, take a deep breath. In, out. He brings you down. And then he'll get into it. And it'll be, and this is in between rounds. It'll be, hey, when he's throwing that jab, he's dropping his right hand. What I want you to do is counter that right and then shoot a takedown. Like that. It's not teaching a technique. It's just sort of walking you through, here's what's happening. Here's the adjustments I need you to make. So I would corner. It would just depend on who and where and why. Because if I don't know you from a hole in the wall and I'm sitting there and you're making an asshole out of yourself, I'm not trying to be associated with that. The second part was, you coach high school wrestling, right? How would you handle a kid that came out and pulled a Jalton Almeida? I coached all levels, not college, but I coached private club. I coached high school publicly, private club, high school, and youth. And I did it for an insanely long time. Moved to Texas, started doing it here, and then COVID hit, and I realized I don't care about these kids. Now I would. Now that I've been in this town for 7 years or 6 years, whatever it is, now I would do it again here because now I do care about these kids. I have a sense of town pride, which I didn't have when I first moved here. Either way, I cornered at all levels. We produced multiple national champions, tons of All-Americans, a ridiculous amount of state champions, all that shit. And of course, you get kids that, I assume when you say pull Jalton Almeida, you mean do nothing. Of course you get those kids. Of course. The beauty about wrestling is it weeds himself out. You can't do nothing and continue. Like, if you're in a tournament and you do nothing and you lose, you're out of the tournament. The shit took care of itself. If you are in the practice room doing nothing, and you lose your spot to somebody else because they literally beat you in a wrestle-off, it worked itself out. The beauty of wrestling is that it works itself out. It's objective. It's not subjective. If you're coaching baseball, you're going to get parents like, why doesn't my kid play? My kid doesn't get, that shit doesn't, come to me if I'm coaching your kid in wrestling. Why didn't my kid start? Because he fucking lost to that kid. I put your kid and that kid in the middle and I said, wrestle, and your kid lost. So yeah, he's not the best one. Therefore, he's not going out there. Simple. So wrestling has an inherent way of working itself out. But if the question is, I'm in the corner and the kid's doing nothing, well, then you got to hype this kid up. You have to know the kid well enough to get him there. Is he not shooting because he's a coward? Is he not shooting because he never shoots? Is he a counter wrestler and the kid's not shooting at him? As long as you know the kid, then you can walk him through what the hell's going on and how to get through it. Tell him where to, take a step back, step off to the side, mirror the leg, snap the head, like whatever it is. So there's a million ways to get through that, but long term, in a tournament, on a team, that shit figures itself out every time. And would I let my kids, he's talking about me and my actual children, my 2 beautiful daughters, would you let your kids compete in those Muay Thai kid fights in Thailand? No, I would not. Trying to get my beautiful little girls all fucked up. Not happening. Not happening. Then we had who shaved Jacob's eyebrows from Eric Santos, 8432. Yeah, motherfucker was just born that way. The poor bastard. The poor bastard was just born that way. No eyebrows. You can't see them. Now, I did tweet a video. I came across somebody who dyed their eyebrows because they were similar, of the ginger variety, and you couldn't see their eyebrows at all. So he dyed them. Looked like a different person, looked spectacular. So he was born that way, unfortunately, but maybe if he dyes them, he could change his whole identity. Then we have a question from Mad or Trinidad 4902. I don't know what the hell it is. Title fight marketing since Paramount is levels better. Also releasing old fight footage. What do you feel is the future of campaigning these fighters are other than the edits people make? Okay. I'm going to read that slow. And if you wrote this, and if you're watching this, Amandor Trinidad 4902, maybe English is your second language. Great. If it's not, you even edited this comment and we still ended up with, what do you feel is the future of campaigning these fighters are other than the edits people make? I assume what you're trying to get at here is, how do you promote? What's the best way to promote fighters and fights and events? I'm going to answer that question. I think you do need to bombard people with highlights and ads, because you and anybody watching this video is very aware of the next UFC event and who's on it. Very aware of who's fighting this weekend. Very aware. But regular people, the casuals, if you will, there are more of them than there are of us. So to grow this sport and to get monster views, you need casuals. People throw out casual like it's an insult. Casuals are our friends. Without casuals, we don't have a fucking sport. The diehards cannot keep the sport afloat. Those same diehards that want to call everybody else a casual refuse to pay for events for years. And the money for the event is what supports the event and then the fighter. And if there's not enough money, we don't get enough fighters, and you understand how that all works. So you need the casuals. And the way that you can bring in casuals, the way that you can grow, the way that you can do all of this is by pumping out those highlights, doing those promotions, and getting people excited. Because I know a ton of people that would love an Ilia Topuria fight, but they don't know who he is. Show us who he is. Do the personality pieces. Paramount and CBS are the same company. Put that shit on CBS. UFC 326, that entire event will be on CBS, so that'll help. So they need to promote UFC 326, which they will. Then UFC 326, assuming it's a good event, will act as its own promotion for the next event. So I think you lean into social media, throw commercials wherever you can, do interest piece content, and then obviously Paramount controls, when you open the app, what's on the front. Start shoving shit on the front. It's a new era. Shove shit on the front of the screen so that we have to look at it. Then we have a comment from Force Bet. Question about premium. You say we can tape study and watch the fighters' previous fights. Do you have the videos of all their fights or just some? So there's a couple of misconceptions, not from you, but in general. People think we host the fights. That is illegal. I'm not hosting copywritten content. So the videos, for example, if you're going to do your research for UFC 326 and you pull up Max Holloway, in our tape index, you'll see every single fight Max Holloway has ever had, the date that the fight happened, the outcome of the fight. You'll see the closing odds for that fight. You'll see high-level stats like how many strikes and takedowns and all that. You'll see the method of victory, scorecards, whatever it is, right? You'll see all that information. And on a chunk of them, a little red play button that you can click, and the video pops up and you can watch the video. Those videos are coming from other sites. It is linking to the videos. We are not hosting those videos. That is illegal. And the reason I point that out is because there are times where a fight will be on YouTube illegally. We're not linking to that. We are linking to known credible sources. So Paramount, Fight Pass, YouTube if it's free. Like, we'll link to known credible sources that are perfectly legal to consume. So it's not every fight. Some of these bullshit regional fights are in the freaking hotel without a cage. But it's all the real fights and the important fights. And the Max Holloway example I used, 90% of his career was in the UFC. So all of those fights. Same with Fight Pass, like Contender Series fights, regional, all that shit. That shit, yes. But we're not going to link to sketchy, like I know there's random websites that have like sketchy embedded videos of fights illegally. We don't. We're a credible business, my man. So hopefully that answers your question. Then we have a question from Yes-Eyed Nen. How much is a unit? I've answered this question many, many times before, so I'll do this one quicker. I think the very first community question video, I answered this as well. A unit is just a way to talk about bets. And you're going to get people that come out here with ridiculously complicated explanations, talking about bankroll and 1% this and 5% that. Fuck that complicated bullshit. A unit for me is $100. Okay. There are people that will bet $10,000 per fight. There are people that will bet $1 per fight. That's a unit. For them, a unit's $1. For me, it's 100. For somebody else, 10,000. And the reason we talk in units is because it's a way to level the playing field. If you are a millionaire and you are more comfortable than I am betting tens of thousands of dollars on every fight, and you say, I put 20 grand on Joe to win, and I only put $100 on Joe to win, it implies that you are far more confident than I am. But the reality is, no, for me, a full unit that's good. I'm confident. For you, that 20 grand, maybe that's a half a unit. Maybe you normally bet 40 grand. Well, you're actually less confident than I am. You bet more money because you have more money to bet, but you're less confident than I am. So when we talk in units, it's a level playing field. If you're like, hey, every week I'm comfortable betting $50. So I would take that $50 and I would divide it up. So say Angelo has a 1 unit bet on this. All right, say $10 of the $10 is 1 unit. Angelo put a half a unit on this. All right, well, that's $5 until you're done with your 50. All right, hopefully that helps. You're going to get ridiculous, complicated. Everybody's a fucking mathematician when it comes to units. My explanation is the most logical and normal explanation you'll ever get. Then we have Repo 2715, Big Ange. What would it take to join the We Want Picks team like BetSam or Kunath? I'm a fan here from Japan. Well, Repo, do you have an audience already? I mean, then let's talk. Here's the thing. Obviously, We Want Picks, we haven't been around that long. We've been around longer than most, but we didn't start this space by any means. We started after COVID, so I think 2021, maybe we're 5 years into this, something like that. We've grown. It was 4 of us. It was me, Jacob, Dan, Nick. Life was too busy for Nick. Life got too busy for Dan. Then it's just Jacob and I built the rest of this. And then one time, 3 years ago, I said, hey, what if We Want Picks becomes a much larger platform for anybody with picks? So now you come into the website and there's hundreds of cappers. Then we realized, no, that's actually too much. That's too much. And people will go there and not know what to do or where to go. So then we refined it and said, okay, who can we bring on that we trust? Like, who will we vouch for? They've got good, solid insight. They're not idiots. They would represent themselves well. And I reached out to some people, and a bunch of people said no. And turns out they're idiots and failures, but they said no. Names that you know, and then I'm not going to say who they are. Only one person that said no would I say, like, yeah, it's probably the right move for you. Everybody else who said no was just hated the idea that We Want Picks is going to show up, and now I'm selling their thing and whatever. But Artem said yes. Artem was relatively unknown at that point in time, but he worked his little ass off, and he was from an entirely different part of the world, so he had his own he had his own audience and his own niche, and he came on board, and now Artem does well. Artem does well, because if you guys don't know how the affiliate stuff works, if you sign up for premium using one of their promo codes, they get 50% of the gross. It's a $10 subscription, 10. There's not a lot of margin in $10. They get 5. By the time taxes are paid and fees are paid, all that, We Want Picks, the broader We Want Picks, ends up with like 2, maybe. Depending on the how you paid, depending on what country you're in and all that shit, I might end up with 2 when it's all said and done. So Artem selling We Want Picks and being exposed to the We Want Picks audience through, his Dana White Contender Series and stuff like that, has done very well. And he works his ass off, so good for him. And the reason I mention that is because then we brought on BetSam. Exact same thing. BetSam was at an inflection point. Like, hey, I'm putting a lot of time and effort into this. I got to figure out, how can I make a couple of dollars doing what I love? And we're like, hey, instead of inventing your own shit, we already have this ridiculous platform that has all these tools, all this stuff. It's all built. The only thing you need to do is input your picks, input your bets. You sell it, you get $5. We get a couple of bucks. Everybody's happy. You do nothing. And it's worked out well for BetSam. BetSam's been a great addition. Same exact thing with Kunath. Kunath was a little different because Kunath was one of the early on. I reached out to Kunath, and I like Kunath. I've talked to him for years. And he was like, nah, I'm going to do my own thing. And he did his own thing. And he did it well. It was successful. And then during the break, we started talking again. He's like, I'll come over. And I think a lot of it had to do with just the sheer amount of time and effort and work to make a website run and then convince people to sign up on the website isn't always worth it. So your question is, how can I come on board like them? So in order to answer that question, I have to give you a history of how this even happens. So if you have an established audience and there's people that are coming to you and you have established yourself as some sort of expert or authority, then yeah, let's talk and we'll figure it out. I'd love to bring in a whole bunch of Japanese fans. But if you're, just starting out and it's like, no, I'm always right, but there is no audience and there is no content and there is no vehicle to advertise, then it won't work, because then it's on me to advertise you, where you should be advertising yourself. And then We Want Picks is just the greatest offering in this space that now includes your stuff. Does that make sense? I cross my finger. I hope you are established and have an audience and Japanese fans love you, because I would freaking love to bring in somebody from Japan. Japanese MMA fans are fucking real. They are diehard fans that have been watching for a million years, and you gotta love the Japanese fans. So, God, I'd love to bring on a Japanese capper. Damshino. I did that in Japanese accent. My offense. Do you believe it becomes risky to bet on decision-maker wrestlers because of the UFC instructions? What he is referencing is last year, Carl Williams, former UFC fighter, said, hey, the UFC came to me and told me to stop wrestling. They basically said they won't sign me again if I keep wrestling. So then he didn't wrestle. Then he kept losing. We just saw Jonathan Almeida not really wrestle. We saw Torres Finney not really wrestle. So there's speculation. They haven't confirmed. There's speculation that the UFC is telling these people like, hey, if you wrestle, you're gone. And even if they don't say it outright, the reality is that's what's happening. Even if they don't say those words, they are cutting boring fighters, and wrestling is pretty boring. So the question is it risky to bet on boring decision wrestlers because of that trend? Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is, because the problem is, if you're a boring wrestler who doesn't finish, you're basically betting that your fighter does what they're supposed to do for 15 full minutes. And I don't think that's a reasonable expectation to have. And then you're expecting the judges do what they're supposed to do and get it correct. And that's not a reasonable. So I would say, yeah, it is probably a little risky to be betting on decision wrestlers. Now, obviously, matchups matter. If it's a decision wrestler versus somebody who can't defend a takedown to save their life, then yeah, it's probably safe. But I would classify that in general as risky, yes. Then we have a question from Alex9World53. Do you think Hunter Campbell has stepped it up so far, looking back in the last few cards of last year and this year? Will Dana hand it off to Hunter, and does the 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. weigh-in window making a difference in these weigh cuts? A lot more fighters missing weight than ever. All right. Compound question. Do I think Hunter Campbell has stepped it up so far, looking back to the last few cards? Well, according to Dana's sworn testimony, Dana White was under oath. He swore under oath. His sworn testimony was, I haven't done any matchmaking in 10 years. Because he said when WME bought the UFC, I haven't done any matchmaking at all. So according to him, for the last 10 years, it's only been Hunter Campbell. And if that's true, which I do not believe it is, if that's true, then I don't think he stepped it up. I think he's just doing what he's doing, because we've had some incredible cards these last 10 years. I think the matchmaking is exactly what it has always been. I do not think there's a decline. People love complaining. You guys know this sport. You're here. You might be one of them. People love to hate on their favorite sport, and I don't understand that. I don't understand how you can love this sport. It's your favorite sport in the world, and you just spend every minute you have bitching, this card sucks, that card sucked, this is awful, that's awful, commercial. Shut the fuck up. Then don't fucking watch. Jesus Christ. I think the matchmaking is totally fine. And I'm not talking directly to you, because you're not being negative in here. You're just asking a question. I'm saying the general public perception and reality are two different things. Because the vocal public, the people on Twitter and the people, that doesn't represent the majority. That's just the minority that speak out and spend the time to tweet and put their opinion out there publicly. I think that sentiment is matchmaking sucks now. The UFC sucks now. But I disagree. I think we've had some spectacular fight cards, both recently and a while ago. I thought 2025 had a bunch of great fight cards. I thought 2024 had a bunch of great fight cards. I think the fight cards are more reliant on the star power you have at that point in time than they are the actual matchmaking. Obviously, matchmakers can put together an incredible fight. But the reality is, if you want to judge matchmaking, you got to judge the lower undercard fights, because that's truly matchmaking. That's when you have a roster of 80 fighters in this weight class and you pick 2 of them to fight each other. Once you get to like the main events, it's not really that complicated. This guy's ranked number 5. Who's near him in the rankings that's willing to fight that they haven't fought yet? All right, this guy. That's not Hunter Campbell. That's just the falling out when fighters are hurt, falling out if they've already fought each other, and picking the next guy available. To judge matchmaking, you got to go with the undercards. And I feel like it's fine. I feel like it's what it's always been. We're just relying on a fighter to suck or not suck. Will Dana hand it off to Hunter? Yes, he basically has. At least his sworn testimony is that Hunter does everything. Does the contracts, does the matchmaking, he does all of it. And then does the 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. weigh-in window make a difference for the weight cuts? Yeah, of course, 100%. Anytime you adjust or give somebody more or less time makes a huge difference. UFC 235, they had like 36 hours. They had some ridiculous, it was way more than 24 hours. I think it was 36. They had 36 hours from the weigh-ins to when they actually fought. So anytime you adjust the weigh-ins to the fight, if there's not as much time, it's going to affect performance negatively. If there's more time or better, it'll affect performance positively. I think it's just literally that simple. Then we have, guys, we got like fucking 90 questions here. Then we have a question from, seems legit. Big Ange, you talked about the generations in UFC and the difference and evolution of fighters over the years. Is there any earlier generation champion you think could be champion in today's age, or today's champs too well-rounded? I think they're too well-rounded. I think the only early generation, and I don't know how early you mean. Are you talking Royce Gracie, like, UFC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Or are you talking, UFC 40, 50, 60? I don't know where you're at, but, UFC 40, 50, we had was Tito Ortiz, UFC 41, Onslaught, something like that. So I think if Tito back then existed today, in today's Chuck Liddell, Tito, let's use them both. Randy, let's use all 3 of them. If you had those fighters, this is the mid-generation. Could they be a world champion today at light heavyweight? Honestly, maybe. Obviously in their prime, not at their current age. You took their prime, you put it to today. I think they could. If you go back even farther, absolutely not. There's no way. Everybody knows too much. The reason you had single-threaded fighters do so well, like a Royce Gracie, is because nobody knew what the hell jiu-jitsu was. And then wrestling, like a Mark Kerr could do as well as he could because people had no idea how to defend takedowns. Mark Coleman, same thing. So yeah, I think if you go to the mid-generation, there are a couple people, depending on the weight class, that could do well now. But for the most part, in general, the sport is just getting too good, too fast. People are criticizing champions from a year ago. I just did a fucking podcast with Anvi who said Israel Adesanya was overrated and his entire title reign was fraud. I mean, so he thinks the sport has evolved in 3 years. Too fast. Like, come on. Yes, I think the sport's evolved too much that the vast majority cannot compete, but a weak weight class, potentially. Scott Mack, 66-56. How bad does the heavyweight division need Gable Steveson? And what will his line close at his first UFC fight? Yeah, great question. They desperately need him. The heavyweight division's a fucking joke. The champ, Tom Aspinall, isn't fighting. Whether you believe his eye injuries or not, it doesn't matter because he's not fighting. And the amount of people who don't believe him or think he's a coward is astronomical. So his stock plummeted. This guy went from one of the most loved fighters that everybody was making fun of John Jones, calling John Jones a duck, and everybody loved Tom Aspinall, and Tom's the best. He went from one of the most loved fighters to somebody, like, universally people don't like anymore. Crazy that happened. Absolutely obscene, crazy that the fans turned on him so freaking quickly, but they did. So you need to juice this weight class. The weight class in general, heavyweight, absolutely sucks shit. It's terrible. We just watched what trash-ass Jalton Almeida was able to do. Obviously, he's coming off 2 losses in a row, but that guy sucks, and he has like 8 finishes in the UFC, and he was ranked in the top 10. You get somebody with the power of Gable Steveson and the wrestling, I mean, he could be top 10 in his first fight. The odds, obviously, that's very dependent on who he'll fight in his first fight, but if he fights anybody that isn't a top 5 in the world, I guarantee he's a tremendous, ridiculous favorite. Then we have Archer Bang, 91.92, Izzy or Pyfer. I mean, you probably got to pick Pyfer at this point because Izzy's a little older, a little chinny, but Izzy is by far the better striker, not even remotely. Like, you can't argue that it's close. It's not close a little bit. It's not even a little close. Not even. Izzy is such a better striker than Pyfer. Pyfer just has insane power. And he can wrestle. So the guy with insane power versus the guy who's been chinned, the guy who can wrestle versus the guy who can be taken down. I got to go Pyfer, but his cardio is dog shit. So if somehow it does get out of the first and second round, it might become a problem. But I got to go Izzy. I got to go Pyfer here. I think Izzy's an all-timer, but everybody's time comes. Then we have Fern Bird Studios. Will we ever get Kunath on a live stream? We need to see Kunath and Jacob interact. I don't know. I have no idea. The problem is everybody thinks they want that until you have 3 people talking at the same time. And it gets like, how many times have you guys seen a call-in show? It's me, Jacob, and a guest. 3 of us, we can manage it. But then sometimes it's me, Jacob, and then Bet Sam calls in. Then there's 3 of us, and then there's a guest, and then there's 4 of us, and it's just a mess. You're talking over each other, or you're trying to be respectful to the other person. So it's 3 is honestly too much. Just the 2 of them together would be solid. But it's also funny because I think a lot of people think that Jacob is like bombastic in real life. He's not. He's very normal, chill, funny, likable. Then we have Aaron Salgado. What did you and Jacob study in college, and what did y'all do after? So I still have a real job. This is not my job. Jacob, I think he studied accounting. His father was an accountant, and I think he went to school for accounting. And Jacob currently still has a real job and did have a real job before as well. I'm not trying to. He wants to talk about it, he can talk about it. My was just general business studies, like the most generic bullshit in the world. And my job after, I had every job imaginable before. Like I worked for a tree company as like a lumberjack, and I would work for a landscaping business, a different company, and then plow in the winter and all sorts of dumb shit like that. I worked for a computer consulting company where they would send me out to projects at night where I would be replacing computers all night long. But most of my career has been telecom, phone, internet, selling it, building relationships with customers, shit like that. So yeah, not a very exciting answer. Then we have lock of the week. Where's it at? From Fast Card Die the Hitman Hearn. What the fuck? Yeah, listen, Jacob has not done a lock of the week for the first 3 events. He is uninspired, if you will. He basically was like, listen, to sit here for 4 hours and put together a 1-minute highlight edit feels stale. I want to do, you guys know how creative he is. Lock of the Week started as creative, clever sketches, some of the most unique, engaging, funny content that has ever been on MMA YouTube. Objective fact. He invented creative content for the most part in this MMA pick space. Then he did a couple of sick highlights and people loved him. So then it became basically just highlights with the occasional skit. And then I think he was like, dude, I'm just making highlights every week now. Like, no, this needs to get back to what it was. Like skits and creativity and fun. So he's basically cooking up an idea to get back to that. So it's less about the pick. You guys, I imagine you want lock of the week for the entertainment piece. The pick is the pick. If you bet an underdog, the bet will be on premium and you can just see it there. It's the calling it lock of the week and putting together the skit and the creativity and the fun. That's what makes it special. And that's the piece he's trying to re-inspire. Then we have Charles Lord, L1F. As a fellow King of Queens fan, here we go. Lock it. As a fellow King of Queens fan, I've always wanted to know what your favorite episode is. For me, I had to go with Trash Talker, the one where Jon Favreau guest stars and they fight in the kids' ball pit. Although, it was difficult not to pick Fight Schlub with all the MMA cameos. Keep grinding, fellas. First of all, love it. Best comment I've gotten. I love King of Queens. I think King of Queens is an all-time underrated show. I think it is one of the best shows that does ever made, comedy-wise, sitcom-wise, that doesn't get enough credit. I will laugh harder at a King of Queens episode than all these other shows that people think are better, like Friends and even Seinfeld. I love Seinfeld. Seinfeld's a far more clever show, but the character development and everybody plays their own role and they play it perfectly in King of Queens. I love that show. Two things. One, Fight Schlub, obviously, when that came out, I was very excited. It has Boss Rutan in it. And if you don't know, Boss Rutan and Kevin James in real life are friends. And I was very excited for that episode. Obviously. Randy's in it. Dan Henderson's in it. I was very excited for that episode. I had a TiVo back in the day. This is when I, overnight, was replacing computers at Boehringer Ingelheim. And I'd be gone, 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. to 3 a.m., whatever the hell it was. So I would have to TiVo shit. And for whatever reason, the one and only time this TiVo fucked up was this episode. So I didn't, and this is before on demand. Like this is, I don't remember the year, but this isn't when we were able to just, I missed that episode, but it's on demand. It's on Hulu. It's over here. No. So I had to wait. And eventually, like a year later, I watched it and I loved it. I don't think it's a particularly funny episode. That's just a cool one because all the fight fans. My favorite episode is called King of Pong. And it's the episode where Arthur is teaching Doug how to play ping pong. And that, oh my God, do I love that episode. I absolutely, when Arthur's holding his hips, release into me. I love it. That episode, absolutely hilarious. I will never miss that episode. The second episode is the Christmas one where Arthur is trying to come up with a Christmas song. And then he's like, nah, Christmas is oversaturated. We need a Kwanzaa song, a Hanukkah song. Like that episode's pretty funny as well. But those two are by far my favorite episodes. Then we have a question from Michael Kernan. Does Jacob think Josh is a tool? Meaning cringy. No, not at all. Jacob obviously would make jokes about my friendship with Josh on our stream and stuff like that. But then if you go watch the UFC 325 vlog, me, Jacob, Josh, and a few other people went to some regional MMA fights here in Texas. So they met and they hung out in person for the first time ever. And they got along great, of course. Both normal, likable people. So no, Jacob does not think that. He'll play the role, but he does not think that at all. If he does, then I don't know about it. Adam Cool 2022. When will elitist Ange bless us Android peasants with the We Want Picks app? All right, first of all, we had an Android app. I've explained this a million times over. Our app needs to sync with people's memberships. Obviously, there's free content on the app as well, but to look at the bets and the picks and use the data analyzer and all that crap, your membership needs to sync. And with Android, the login doesn't work. It just doesn't work. The platform that we built our app on, we built it for Android. We published it. It was out in the world. All was good. And for whatever reason, Android, you log in and it doesn't keep the token. It doesn't keep you logged in. That's the problem. That's why there was an Android app. That's why it was pulled. And until the platform that we're using to deliver the app, because when you make an app, there's a couple different routes. All of them are expensive, but you could either spend like 50 grand to 100 grand and make one from scratch. Didn't do that. Or much less, and you're using a platform. Just like with a website. You can build a website from nothing, and you're going to spend a fortune. Or you can use something that already exists, like a Squarespace, or a hybrid like a WordPress. So that is the issue. But you don't need an app. You don't need it. Just use any browser, Chrome on an Android. Use any browser you want. Everything works perfectly. It all resizes, everything. It works perfectly. Every tool, everything. You just won't get push notifications, obviously. Then we have Reginald P. Money'sworth. I mean, this is a dog's name. This is a character from a kid's movie or a dog's name. Reginald the Dog says, agree or disagree, Matt Brown having 13 UFC knockouts as a welterweight is more impressive than Derek Lewis having 16 as a heavyweight. Well, two things here. One, I mean, Derek is objectively the all-time knockout king. That's an objective fact. He has more knockouts than anybody else in the history of the UFC. Matt Brown having 13, that is impressive. And you're right, you could argue it's more impressive because it's welterweights and not heavyweights. The difference is, and this is not a true fact, I'm estimating, half of the Matt Brown ones are TKOs and not KOs. You got a takedown, elbow sandwich. Broke people. Derek Lewis is one punch sleeping people. He's not taking you down. So for Derek Lewis to have 16 knockouts when everybody knows he can't really defend the takedown and everybody knows he's never going to shoot a takedown, for him to have 16 is fucking crazy because it's just easy to not get, hey, don't stand with him. You won't get knocked out. So yeah, the Matt Brown one is wildly impressive. But I'll stick with Derek's being a little more impressive because they're true knockout. They're true bunk knocked you out and not TKOs, which the Matt Brown stat does include TKOs. Then we have Mersault. 1111. When are you and Jacob finally going to cut through all that sexual tension and just kiss already? It's 2026, guys. Nobody cares. First of all, I promise you guys care. You know how I know you people care? I wore... What the hell was I wearing that everybody lost? Oh, I live in a town called Prosper, and I was wearing like a hunter green shirt. Maybe it was closer to brown, something like that. And I have a hat that says Prosper, but it says it upside down. The hat matched the shirt. Same color family. So I put that hat on. I filmed a whole ass video with Josh for Bad Takes. I got 30 comments being like, upside down Prosper hat, upside down hat, unsubscribe. So these fucking dweeb dork fashionistas cared so much about a hat. And this is not a controversial hat. It's not a politically driven hat. It's not a hat that takes a stand for or against something. It's the name of my fucking town. And it's not even like it can be misconstrued because the mascot in my town are the Eagles. So, and their color is green, which is an unfortunate combination because if I wear a shirt that says Eagles and it's green, people think I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, which I'm not. I'm just supporting my local high school. But if you people got bent out of shape over an upside down, the name of my town hat, I promise, makeout session with Jacob will break it. Then we have Zach. Like, whoa. Why are Jacob's picks so ass? This is specific to the last event. Yeah, he kind of got off the rails in the last event, didn't he? First of all, Jacob's picks are objectively good. Like, if you track the actual picks over a long period of time, they're good. Now, where Jacob can get a little crazy, he's not afraid to pick a dog. And that's awesome for Lock of the Week. Lock of the Week is tracked on our website, every single one ever. And there has never been a year where it wasn't up money. If you just bet every Lock of the Week, just bet each one every week, whenever it comes back. If you bet each one every week, you'd be up money. Would you be up money every week? No. Would there be stretches where you'd be down? Of course. But by the end of the year, 100% guarantee you'd be up money. It's happened every single year. So he has no problem picking dogs. The problem is he picked some fucking dogs. UFC Vegas 113, he picked, like, it was ridiculous what he was doing. And not in a good way. Oh, I'm going to pick Alex Morono. Okay, well, good luck with that. I'm going to pick, who else did he pick? He had a couple of fucking atrocious dog picks on that card. To the point where it's like, dude, are you joking at this? Is this a joke now? What are we doing? So, yeah. Did he pick Eduardo Mora? Like, I don't remember. It was a bunch of shitty dog picks. So, yeah, he's not afraid to pick dogs. So, sometimes the picks are... Then, Hillmatic. Would you rather go for 5-minute rounds against Francis Ngannou or watch a Nima drama video in its entirety? First of all, I wouldn't last 25 minutes with Francis Ngannou. That guy's massive, would knock me out. Second of all, the Nina drama hate is so forced. What do people actually not like? It's so forced. And I know it's forced because I've been at events in real life with Nina Drama there, and people fucking flock to her. There are more people waiting and running around and lining up to take a picture or get an autograph from her than 90% of the fighters that walk there. Anthony Hernandez, not an established UFC fighter, not the most popular in the world, but Anthony Hernandez was there at weigh-ins. Nobody gave a fuck. This is for UFC, whatever the Charles Ilia card was. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. He's just standing there, living. Nina Drama was on the other side of the gate. And people were like, Nina. She took 50 pictures, signed it. It was great. People fucking love her in real life. The internet gives her a hard time. And I don't know why. I think the hate is forced. Because if you watch any of her content, it's well edited. It's different. It's fun. Like, who gives a fuck? Then people are like, oh, she's married. You don't know her personal life. You don't know. You have no idea. She's sleeping with everybody. Do you know that? Are you assuming? And if she does, she does. Like, who gives a fuck? I think the Nina Drama hate is forced. And it's a weird paradox where people get too popular and then everybody hates them. They love you on the way up. They hate you when you get there. I'll never understand that, but that happens. Then she's a woman. People hate women. Then she's attractive. So people just want to hate that for some weird reason. And then as an attractive woman, if she even looks in the direction of a fighter, she's a slut. I think the Nina Drama hate is way off. There are a lot of other content creators that are worth hating far more than her. Like, she is making fun, different content. It's that or what? I don't think Schmo gets enough hate. And I had no problem with the guy, but like, to do the suspenders and talk in a voice, that's an annoying gimmick. It's an old annoying gimmick, because then your questions are normal questions. Like, you're dressed like that and you do the nerd voice, and then your question is like, how was your camp? All right. At least Nina is, maybe she's like ramping up the personality, but everybody does that on camera. But Nina will like do different style interviews, and they're like funny and wild and weird. And so I think the Nina Drama hate is I don't know. I don't even know why I'm like on this random defend her. Like, I don't even really consume the content. I just see the random hate, and I am surprised by it, because none of it's like, hey, I don't like her because this is clearly, it's an act and I don't like an act. Great. Then you should also not like these other people who are playing a character. There's people in my space that break down fights that are like, hey, I rented a nice car for the day. I'm fucking rich. Look at me. Nah, that's fucking fake. That's fake. You know how I know it's fake? Because anytime you show pictures or videos of your actual life, it ain't fucking that. That fucking apartment with the cords hanging from the TV ain't fucking that. It ain't that car. That's fake. So I think the drama hate is, I think it's unwarranted. And maybe I'm way off base. Let me know. Hey, we hate her for these 5 reasons. All right, well, let me know. Because, like, I think you would have a more valid, and I actually like Ariel Helwani too, but I think you would have a more valid argument hating Ariel Helwani than Nina Drama, because Nina Drama is putting out fun content. She is never trying to be the expert. She's not trying to do any real reporting. She's not trying to inform. She's just trying to create fun, different content. And before you're like, she's a paid shill for the UFC. Who gives a fuck? Oh, she's getting paid by the world's largest promotion to make fun content about their fighters and their events? Okay. Sounds like marketing. But Ariel, typically pretty negative, always looking to start some bullshit between people, always trying to pull some strings, kind of a crybaby, woe is me. Like, I think it's far more plausible to build a real argument like, yeah, I don't like Ariel Helwani, and here's the 10 reasons why, than it is for Nina. If you're like, I don't like Nina, she's too, I don't know, she's fake. She's a slut. It's like, okay, all right, well, good reason. And I'm not like, I don't know why the fuck I went on that. Apparently I love Nina Drama. Then we have Alex 9.999. Thoughts on Face the Pain not being the UFC theme song anymore? Great question. If you don't know that, like, that UFC intro song that was a second generation song, right? The beginning was, and then Face the Pain came. The SEG era, the original company that owned it. Then the Zuffa era was Face the Pain. And then now that's kind of gone here with the TKO or the WME era. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Like, obviously there's some nostalgia, but sometimes they'll play the old music, and in the arena they'll do Face the Pain. So I'm good with it not being on the broadcast. It just doesn't fit the vibe right now. Like, hardcore heavy metal. Face the Pain was when the UFC was advertising itself as like the world's most brutal sport. That's not how it's advertised anymore. Now it's a combat sport, and it's a personality sport with very skilled athletes. Where back then it was, these guys are gonna bash the fuck out of each other. There's only 3 rules. So Face the Pain was for that era, not this one. I'm totally fine with it not being around anymore. Obviously, you hear stuff every now and then, you get excited, like the if I heard a Pride walkout, that woman fucking screaming into the microphone, Sakuraba, that woman, that would be nostalgia. But I'm fine with no more Face the Pain. I don't really. As an OG fan, I get it. It was kind of cringy 10 years ago, let alone fucking today. Then M Humongous 121. Are we making millions betting you to be the heavyweight champ by the end of the year? This was a last year bet, and you lost your money. If you don't know, some of the sportsbook allow you to give them bets. So Bet Online they had their whole list of fighters to end 2025 as the champion for each division. And you could write in a fighter. So somebody, I don't know who, wrote in me. So it said Angelo. They gave me odds. So if you went to Bet Online a year and a half ago at this point, or whatever it was, in January or December 2024, January 2025, you could have bet on me to end the year as the heavyweight champ. Here, I have it already. I bet it. And here it is. I placed this bet. It's my actual ticket. I max bet it at $13. That's the most they let me put on it. And I was plus 8,000. And the odds went down. I ended up being plus 7,500, 7,000, I think is the lowest. So that's not a bet for this year. Maybe next year if I fucking lose a few. Then we have Trebi. Do you agree with Ariel that the UFC event at the White House is sports washing? The fights aren't even being fought on Independence Day. And name your 3 most likely fights, not counting Ilia. Personally, I think Pereira versus Khan will happen. All right, first of all, if you guys don't know what sports washing is, it's like using sports to clean up your bad reputation. So, like, that's what a lot of people say Saudi Arabia does. Oh, they put on these these high caliber events. They pay for it. They use the sports, and people just ignore all the atrocities that they've done. And now I guess the question is, do you think we're doing that here? That the White House is using the UFC to be like, hey, look how likable we are. We like your favorite sport. I don't think so. I don't think it's sports washing. I think it's literally the relationship between Donald Trump and Dana. They clearly have a relationship. Dana even spoke at the RNC. So I think they have a relationship. And I don't know how the conversation started. It might have started with a joke. Like, hey, we could do an event here. Yeah, let's do it. Like, I don't think it's sports washing. I think it's leveraging relationships is what I think it is. The fights aren't even being fought on Independence Day. I don't know what went into making the schedule. Obviously, the whole idea is it's the 250th birthday of America and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what went into it, but I have to imagine it's not easy to schedule a massive international sporting event at one of the most protected places on the planet. So I don't know what went into it. I do not think it was a conscious, like, oh, let's bring this sport here and then people will like me more. I don't think it's that. I think it's just 2 guys have a relationship. They're both powerful for different reasons and they did it together. 3 most likely fights, not counting the Ilia fight. Yeah, I don't know. So this is supposed to happen in like 4 months. I would certainly say I agree with Alex Pereira, whether it's Alex versus Gon, Alex versus Tom, or Alex versus John Jones. Somebody said Alex versus John Jones at 205 might happen. I definitely think Alex will be on there. I don't know versus who, but I'm fine with versus Gon. Fuck Aspinall at this point. I know he didn't poke himself in the eye. I get it. But like, Jesus Christ, dude. We've all been watching this sport for a very long time. I can't name a single person who has gotten eye poked and it somehow dragged on longer than this, multiple surgeries later. And maybe I'm way off base, but like, fuck, dude. It's been 4 months. Jesus. Never seen it like that, ever. I've been watching this a long fucking time. I've never seen an eye poke lead to two different eye surgeries and this and that many, many months later. What are we doing? So yeah, I'm fine. Move on. Alex Bejeda versus Gane. I'd watch it. I think we get Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes on that card. Kayla Harrison, Olympian, perfect female fight, fits it perfectly. I don't think we'll get a Conor McGregor fight. I think that's bullshit. I think Conor's too greedy and it's too far gone at this point. So what I do, I gave you Alex, Kayla versus Amanda. I don't know what another one would be because you said don't use the Ilia one. Certainly Ilia will be one. I don't think Islam Makhachev. I don't think they want people saying that word there. No, I'm just kidding. What other weight class? 85 pound. I mean, 85 pound belt's not on the line anytime soon. We can get the 125 pound fight. I think they want to do that in Japan. 135 pound, 45. I'm going through the weight classes here. I don't know what another one would be. Maybe Patty. People keep saying Patty, but I don't know why. Like, I assume there's some sort of focus on Americans. That's why Kayla makes a ton of sense. Justin Gaethje versus Ilia. That'll make sense. Alex Bejeda will make sense. I can't think of another one. You know what? Do this. Do Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler. Do that. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, but do that. Then we got a couple left. I promise you this video is winding down. Then we have this little teeny tiny one. It says, why Artem put no bets? Artem doesn't bet. There's your answer. He doesn't bet. So he's not going to list bets for, like, once you start listing bets that you didn't place, that's wildly disingenuous. So he doesn't actually place the bets. Therefore, he's not going to list bets. That's why Artem doesn't do it. I bet. Jacob bets. Kunath bets. Betsam bets. We all bet real bets with our own money, and that's what we show you. Artem doesn't. Therefore, there are not any. Then we have bing bong, bing bong. We have this. What the hell is this? From MVP0515. How much do you drink when there are no fights versus weeks with fights? I know it. What perception is I drink a ton, and I lean into that some because I'll drink in the vlogs and very, very rarely I'll drink in the streams. I really only drink maybe 2 nights a week, maybe a Friday, maybe a Saturday. I really don't drink when fights are on. If we're doing something big, like if it's like I didn't have a single sip of alcohol for UFC 325, not one. What do we do for UFC 324? I don't remember if I had a drink at UFC 324, but I definitely didn't have 325. And the reason is I sit in this chair late at night like this, blinking like a fucking lunatic because my eyes are dry because it's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, filming a recap. So if I've been drinking, A, I don't remember the fights as clearly. B, by the time I have to sit here to film the recap, I'm like gone. So I would definitely, I don't drink a ton to begin with. I know that's shocking to many, but I certainly would drink more without fights than with fights. Like this Saturday, I don't even know if I'll drink because I don't know what we're doing. It's Valentine's Day. But I would be more inclined to be like, yeah, fuck it. I don't have to film. Let's throw some back than if there were actual fights. We have bing bong. Why are these getting smaller? What the hell happened with these screenshots that they shrunk-a-reened? Name a fighter you placed a bet on and you never would again. Jalton Almeida, and I don't need to again because they cut that fucking loser clown bitch. Bing bong. How did you beat the AIDS? From Patty Pimblett, 7430. Just hard work. Where this question is coming from is like last year, maybe 2 years ago. Jacob just said I had AIDS. He just said I had AIDS one day on stream. Out of nowhere, I think I lost my voice. So he said I had AIDS and then ran with it. And the community ran with it. So much so that when I'm on Josh's channel, his channel, weighing in, not my channel, not Bad Takes, not We Want Picks, not Picks Nation, on his channel, the comments are, Angelo, you look good for having AIDS. So people fucking ran with that. Don't have it, but I beat it with just good old-fashioned genetics. Then second to last question. Can you tell us about your worst beating ever as a kid? I got fucking beat. I'm raised by immigrants, and immigrants hit their children. I got beat. The worst, never, my mom would slap me in the face. My dad would never hit me in the face. My mom would slap me in the face, but I'd get fucking belted. I think the worst I ever got was by my mom. We were in the mall, my brother, my mom, and we were acting up. My brother and I would fucking be at each other's throats. And my mom is in the mall. She's like, I'm going to go home. You are going to go to your room. I'm going to put dinner on. I'm going to come into your room. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And then you're going to take your shower and go to bed. And then, so she says that. And then we just go about the mall, right? We just finished the mall shopping. This wasn't on the ride home. This was at the mall. And so then my brother and I were on our best behavior. My mom was in a good mood. The car ride was totally fine. And we're like, oh shit, maybe she forgot, or maybe that was an empty threat. Nope. Get home. She starts dinner. She's like, go to your rooms. We're like, why? She's like, because I'm going to hit you. So then you go to your room and you're waiting. You're like, oh God, oh God. And she comes in with the belt. Fucking just fucking whack. Just beat the absolute fucking shit. And then when she's done, she was done. And it was over. Like it didn't happen. Crazy. And the very last question. Make it a good one. What did you write? Damshio 2. Do you believe it becomes risky to bet on decision maker? I already read this one. Did I screenshot this one twice? I must have. So the beating question was the last question. Guys, I enjoy filming these videos. If you enjoy watching them, like them and share them, because without the views, it ain't worth doing. Let me know what questions you want answered in the next video. You can try to put it under this video. The problem is, I don't know the next time I'll film one of these. So then if I come back, now I'm answering month-old questions. So I guess probably just wait till the next time I post it. And maybe we start doing these live. I don't know. I'll figure something out. Maybe we do these as a call-in show, but the problem is then you have to be available at that specific time. I don't know. I like filming them. You guys don't really like watching them, but thank you for being here. And Sunday morning, you will get your updated UFC Houston breakdown. Everybody complaining that I broke down UFC 326. Guess what, dweeb? The UFC Houston picks and bets are already on the board, and you get an updated breakdown just a few days from now.